Hey everybody, so today we are going to work on our sculpture project and we are going to be working with clay, and we are doing the haniwa figure of a horse. This is on page 456 in your textbook. You can go to Blackboard, and I have included a couple of other photos that I pulled off of the internet that shows a little bit more of the detail in the face. We'll be doing the detail work in a little bit. So yeah, go ahead and take a look at those as well. And let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to divide this up into sections. We've got the four legs and the head here, which are all about the same amount of clay. This neck portion here is a little bit more clay, so I'll make a slightly bigger ball, and then we have the body part here, which will be of an even bigger ball yet. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 small, a medium, and a large ball of clay. So that's what you're looking for. I'm gonna set my tools aside right now, because all I need are my fingers to work on this first part. So when I first open up my clay, there we go. This is what it looks like. And when it comes out, it's stiff. It's been sitting in here for a while. And so the best thing you can do is just get in there and work it with your hands and warm it up. Okay, I'm gonna just roll out some little balls of clay first. So these are gonna be about golf ball size. No, not even that large. A little bit smaller than golf ball size. These are going to be the legs. And then the head is about the same size. A little bit more for the head. Okay. And then a little bit more for the neck. It's going to be a little bit bigger. Put a little bit more in there. Yeah, that's about right. And bigger still for the body. Let me see how that looks size-wise. Okay, I think the original of this was quite large. There we go. Legs, head, neck, body. And always cover up your clay. You can also, if you want to, just throw a few little drops of water on the top of here before you close it up. The more clay you use in your container, the more air there is, and the faster the clay that's left behind will dry out, so it never hurts to throw a little water in there. If you're working with a bag of clay, of course you would wrap it airtight, close that up tight. So that's it for now on the clay. I'll come back and use some more clay later. So let's just work this clay a little bit, soften it up. When it warms up in your hands, it gets so nice and pliant. Okay. Everybody just warm your clay up. Okay, doing pretty good. Okay. That's getting a lot softer. So let's see, on this horse, yeah, 23.5, so it's 2 feet tall. So, and this was done in like an earthenware, not quite a terracotta, but a really nice, pretty buff colored clay. The one I'm working with today is just white. Terracotta would be pretty, but I don't have that. So I'm looking at the legs. This is a slightly different horse. Oh, which reminds me, there's several horses. If you Google this, you're going to see several different versions, because you can look at these two and you can see that they're slightly different too, but they're pretty similar, but a little bit of differences. And so we can use our artistic license on this, and we can make it our version, especially when it comes to doing the details like the saddle and the ornamentation and all of that. You can see this one here has, I think, a lot better detail on it. This is just a little bit maybe just older and more worn down, maybe exposed more to the elements, I don't know. But They're predominantly the same, but they're, like this one here has much taller legs. This has shorter legs. So we can just play with that, and it can be whatever we decide we want it to be. So, all right, let me get this last one warmed up. Then I'm ready to go. All right. So I'm going to start just by rolling my 4 legs. I start by putting them into kind of a cylinder form like this. And I want them to be roughly the same. If I start off with the same amount of clay, similar in size and shape. This one has more. Let me see how these other ones turn out and see what I need to do to even them out. Anyway, if I start with approximately, see, this is more along the lines of that one. If I start with approximately the same amount of clay, I'll have a better chance of ending up with the same size. So this one's smaller than the others. Let me see. I might just have to steal some clay. Yeah, I'm gonna just steal some clay off of the body for now. Throw it on here. We're working with air dry clay. So there's things we can do with air dry clay that we can't do with regular clay. We don't have to be quite so fussy because we don't have to put it in a kiln, because putting it in a kiln and firing it opens up all sorts of issues, and we don't have to deal with those issues. So that's fortunate that we don't have to do that. Of course, whatever we make out of our air dry clay, it is not going to be food safe. It's not ceramic. It hasn't been fired. It's always going to be a little soft. You can paint them when you're done if you let them get completely bone dry first. If you try and paint them too quick when the clay is still wet, the paint just kind of slides around on the surface. I'm going to put that away later for the head. But whatever you make with this, it is more of the type of thing that you're just going to want to sit it up on a shelf where it can just sit there and be looked at, but you don't want it to be handled a lot because it's never going to be really durable. It could never go outside. Like I said, it's not food safe, so you would never eat or drink off of anything that you made with air dry clay. More decorative. Okay, all right, so there's my legs. So to start with, I'm going to take these cylinders, and you can use a pencil or you can use just, a regular old Bic pen. And you're going to push this down through the center. Open this up, and then, whoops, I'm going to move my water off of here. It's going to be easier if I had a board. I'm just going to roll it. Open that leg up. This way it won't be so heavy. I'm not going to make it into a solid leg. I don't love this. It's a little shorter than I want. Okay, you know what we do? We just mush it up when we start over, because that's what we love about clay. So I'm going to start with this a little bit longer cylinder, because I want a longer leg. And now I'm going to go ahead and push this through here. And then I can roll it. Okay, that's more of what I'm looking for. I want it thick enough that it's going to hold the weight of the rest of the horse, because everything sits on this leg. So I don't want this super thin. But I don't want it thick and solid either, because it's just going to take forever to dry. Okay, there's one. Make these a little bit longer, like this. And we'll go ahead and push our pencil through them. If you had a wooden dolly, you could use that, but almost everybody has a pen or a pencil sitting around. Once you get it through, just roll it, smooth it out. I'm just flattening these, so whichever end goes up or down, it's flat. Something that'll stand up. Those are about the right size. Make this a little bit longer. And pushing my pencil through. Okay. And roll it. That one's taller than the others. Tap still a little tall. I'm gonna just take off a little bit here. Push my pencil back through it, just open that up. Yeah, good enough. And I'm gonna smooth and compress this. Still looking at the height. This one's a little tall too. Take a little bit off. Close enough. I'll fuss with that a little bit later. Make it a little bit taller. Push my pencil through here. Okay. Roll it. That'll smooth it and open it up. Elongate it a little bit. And I'm going to compress this clay around the bottom. Get rid of that raggedy edge. See how I'm doing height-wise? Let's take up a little bit more. Use my pencil to open that back up again. Okay. Good enough. All right, so there's my 4 legs. I'm going to do my body next. I took all that extra clay and I stole some clay from there and I want to put it back. And gonna make a nice cylinder. It needs to hold all 4 legs. Now I'm going to push through here. Okay, hold still. I'm going to pull this clay away from this pencil. I think it'll roll a little bit better. As you roll it, you just keep making this opening bigger and bigger. I didn't need to make it that big on the legs because I wanted them to be fairly solid, but I'm going to really open this one because I want this body to be bigger. I could use a longer. I wish I had a dowel, but I don't. You probably don't either, so we're going to use what we have. I'm using my fingers right now just to kind of open this up a little bit. One side's fatter than the other, so I'm pinching that fat side and spreading that and making that side bigger. Let me try putting the pencil back in there and see. Got a thin side and a fat side, so I don't want this thin side to be any thinner, but I do want to take some of the clay. So I'm just kind of pinching. I can support it with my non-dominant hand, and I can push that too. Get my finger in there and push that and make that bigger. I'm not going to worry too much about pretty right now. Pretty comes later. Mostly I want to get this built. I've got a high and a low here. And I've got a thin spot. I'm going to steal a little bit of this clay and just throw it on here. Thicken up that thin spot. Okay. Just keep pinching it, rolling it, pinching it, making it bigger. Okay, I think that will do. All right, set that aside. Now this is going to be the horse's head. And let's take a little bit closer look at the shape of this head. So it's smaller here and it gets bigger there. I'm going to open it up first and then I'll show you how I'm going to make just this part bigger. This one is a little more even, but it's still got a little bit of a taper to it. So just like before, throw my pencil in here, open that up. Okay, and I'm going to pull on this end, which is going to be my tapered end. I'm just going to close that up. And open this up a little bit. Once I can get my finger in there, I can start pinching it. So there, I got a nice taper to my horse's head. Okay, I know I've got lots of tool marks and things in here. I'm gonna deal with those, just not quite yet. So let's take a look at what we have here. Got our legs, looking at the relative sizes, seeing how I'm doing. See, that's pretty big head, but we'll worry about that. He's got a very beefy neck, but I think this might be too much clay, but let's just see how we do first. We can always take off more later. That's the easy part. Clay is just so forgiving. It's the best. That's why I love clay. Everything else I try, I'll fall in love with it. I'll think, oh gosh, this is it. I love this. I love photography. I love printmaking. You know, I love all of it. But, you know, I come back and get my hands in clay and I'm like, nope, clay's the one. All right, just opening this up to make the neck. Get my fingers in here now. This neck has a bit of a taper to it also. So I'm going to keep this side a little bit smaller. I'm going to pinch it a little bit, open it up a little bit. And this side down here, which is going to go against the shoulder. So I'm going to make this even broader still. Well, this one here. Okay. If I just pinch it, I just displace enough clay. And so I start to open this up into more of a funnel or cone shaped. And it's just going to go together later. So we're just making shapes to start with. It's just that easy. All right, so now let's throw these all together. Okay, we've got our 4 legs. We've got a fork, or you can use your pin tool, or like in my case, a bamboo skewer. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach, and I'm going to just flare this out a little bit so I have more like a little cup that I can attach onto. I'm just going to pick one side or the other. This is going to be the top part that's going to attach to the belly. So I just flare that up so I have a little cup that's just going to receive and attach onto that belly better. So normally with clay, we don't want to trap air. Clay is always shrinking. From the minute I took this out of its container, it started shrinking. It's very, very malleable when it's wet, and as it dries, not only does it shrink, but it also gets stiffer, and it crosses from what we call the wet or plasticky state over to a soft leather state, where it just holds its form better, but it's also shrinking the whole time. So if we have trapped air, as our trapped air form starts to shrink, the air pressure builds and builds inside of there, and eventually it would build up to the point where it would pop like a balloon. So, but in the short run, a trapped air form is our friend, because it'll hold its shape, even when it's soft and plasticky, very malleable like it is right now. I can get it to hold its shape if I trap air. So I'm going to close off the feet. I'm going to create a trapped air form is what I'm going to do. So here I go. Closed off these feet. I opened up the other end. I'm going to close off this end. So the one that I opened up cup-like is going to stay open, and this is going to stay closed. And I'm going to close off the body in a minute too. Okay. These are open, these are closed. It's getting a little chunky and dry. I just threw a little water on there. I just want to close that off. This one too. Just pinching, I'm just pulling that clay over on top of itself. Close all these off. Take a little water. It's getting a little dry. Okay, and then I'm going to leave leave this open for now so I can get my fingers in here and I can start scoring and adding these on. So I'm going to add it onto this side. It's a little bit thicker. I'm going to add a little water where I'm going to add it on. Then I'm going to take my fork. Like I said, if you have a pin tool, you could use this, but we want to score it. And I add the water first because as I'm scoring it, I'm just going to raise up some of that clay and make it more liquidy. And that's going to just kind of add, the water is going to act like glue. Wet clay is sticky clay. As it dries, it's less and less sticky. So we have this nice wet sticky clay, and it is going to attach these pieces and hold them better. Also, you score it, not only does that kind of raise up some of the stickiness, but it also will, when these pieces attach together, it's creating these grooves where these pieces are locking together. And as it shrinks, it'll pull together and they'll all shrink at the same rate. We hope, fingers crossed, that's the goal. And now I'm just going to get this wet. I'm just dipping my fork in here and going around and scoring this a little bit and wetting it at the same time. This is the cupped end of the legs. Now I'm going to start with making all of these trapped air forms because I can, like I said, I can work really wet. I don't have to wait for it to get leather hard to where it's going to hold up the form. If I just put all these pieces together when they were wet, they would just start collapsing on me. But with trapped air, it's going to hold that form. So later though, before it can start shrinking, I'm going to have to release that air. So now I'm going to just add on my 4 legs. So you see there where I scored it. I'm going to go ahead and push it on. I'm supporting it on the inside with my finger, and I'm getting my fingertips right down in here, and I'm pushing that. Okay, I'm going to take my knife, and I can take this, let me get it wet a little bit, cupped clay, and I can pull that down onto there, and I can get that nice and attached to the form. It's dry, just get a little bit of water. That'll make it behave better. So now I have a completely trapped air form in here, and it would hold its form no matter what I do. Okay, second one. Taking that cupped clay there. So now I'm going to go in there and smooth it, attach it, make sure it's very firmly attached. Okay. Gently switch over to the other side. Okay, this clay is very wet and it's wanting to come apart right there. I am just going to compress it and not let it fall apart. Another leg. Take that cupped clay and pull it down onto the horse's body. So I get it attached. That's also going to help at that part where it was trying to come apart. I like to use the serrated end of the knife in the beginning because it moves the clay better, and then I switch over to the smooth side of the blade and I just smooth it. You could use a regular kitchen knife too. If you don't want to use a disposable or you don't have a disposable, just make sure it gets really well cleaned before it goes back into the kitchen. I end up pulling things out of my kitchen all the time. I'm working in the studio and I'm thinking, oh gosh, I need a funnel, or I need this, or I need that. And I just always have to be really careful, kind of have a rule that once it goes into the studio, it doesn't go back into the kitchen. If that's feasible, like blenders. I have a blender and a mixer in my studio because I do use them for mixing up glazes and all sorts of things. And I just don't think I would ever get that clean enough that I'd feel comfortable doing food prep with it again. So I have a separate set for my studio and for my kitchen. Okay, there we go. And he stands up on those 4 legs. Okay, so there we go. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to close up this body. I'm going to roll these in a little bit. I'm going to create yet another trapped air form. So I'm just taking and gently kind of folding these in, pinching them in just a little bit. My clay is drying out pretty fast. I will say with this air dry clay, I feel like it dries out a lot faster. So I'm going to round this in, pull this in. I want to create a ledge of clay. I'm going to take and score this. Wet it and score it. Wet it and score it. Yeah, I put my clay away. It's going to have to come back out. Immediately close it right back up. Okay, and now I'm just going to use my fingers. I'm going to pinch out a little cookie, a little pancake. Like I can tell the difference. The clay that came out is so much more moist than the clay that's just been sitting out just for a few minutes. I'm going to cover that up and pull it over. So I'm also creating a trapped air form here because I want to be able to pick up and handle this without having it collapse. So I'm going to use that internal air pressure to keep this so I can keep building. Okay, I'm going to do the back side. Just making a little cookie or a pancake. Don't need quite as big. I made the back side smaller. Just throw a little water on here. Score it. Okay. I don't want to pick them up and handle them too much. I always tell everybody, pick up your clay like it's a little baby bunny. You can always see he's already puffing up. That air is already trapped in there, and so as I'm pushing against this, it's moving that air around inside of there. Gently pick them up. Be super careful. All right, now I got some trapped air in there, and I'm feeling pretty good about, so my chances that this isn't going to collapse on me. Okay. I'm going to use my smooth in. Now that I didn't really spend a lot of time on this because I wanted to get it the air trapped first. And now I'll go in and clean it up and smooth it up a little bit. If I can't get the clay to move, I go switch to the serrated end, and that moves the clay around. And then to smooth the clay, I can go. You can also use a spoon. That's why I brought the spoon out. It's a spoon is a good smoother. And you can just use your fingers too. Oops, I start bringing it towards my face and I think, I'm not in the camera anymore. Sorry about that. If I keep pulling out of camera range. Spend a lot of time smoothing things. Okay. That's smooth enough for now that I'm not worried about it cracking or anything. I'm going to switch over to this side. Okay, I don't want to spend an extraordinary amount of time making this pretty because I still have more stuff to add to it. Okay, he kind of, you know, I did this and I don't love this because he really comes up straight from there. Okay, I think I'm gonna, yikes, I'm gonna take this off. Yes, I am. That's what we love about clay. You don't like it, just take it off. Okay. So from the chest, this horse, our horse that we're modeling this on, our haniwa horse, he just comes straight up. And I had that big kind of shelf I built there. That didn't belong. I need a little bit more clay. I'm going to take some of this, which I know is wet. As it's a little thin there, I'm just going to add a little patch of clay and smooth it. So I like to let you watch me make mistakes because, you know, we're problem solving, right? Problem solving all the time. What's happening here? What's the clay doing? What will it let us do? What won't let us do? And so sometimes I make decisions and I look at it, I'm like, yeah, that's not going to work. All right, so now I'm going to have it go straight up from here. I'm going to kind of bend this around. I have a lot of clay right in here left over. I just make this big and flat. I'm going to use that to go ahead and seal that. No, I don't love that. Let me just push it out a little bit there. Bring that over. No, I don't have enough clay to do that. I was thinking I could make it a flap with the extra clay that I had. That's just pulling this shoulder flat. So rather than, I was trying to do a shortcut there. So I'm going to just do it the right way. Pull this clay around. Don't need a ton of clay for my little pancake this time. Got it down to a pretty small opening. Just knead this together, make sure it's all one sticky, solid piece. And we're gonna make a pancake or a cookie. Add a little water. Got a thick spot up here. I'm gonna put that one up and the thin spot down so I don't end up creating another bulge down there. Just going to use the knife to seal this up, get back to a trapped air form. Okay, once I have that trapped air form, clean up my tool. I can go ahead and smooth it a little bit. Okay, now the neck. So looking at my proportions, this neck is too big. His neck isn't as big as his legs, but the opening is pretty close, but it's just, I mean, the diameter is about the same, but it's just not that long. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take some of this off. What do I think? He has a pretty long neck, but it also gets thinner up here than I'm showing. So I'm going to make this thinner, thin this down a little bit on the neck, and I still think this is a little long. Take a little bit more off. Okay. All right, I'm feeling better about that. So I'm going to cut this out again like I did before. I'm just flaring this out because that's going to give me something to stick to, okay? And take a wet fork and just go in there and score it. Get it wet so it's sticky. Same thing here. Score it. Get it wet so it's sticky. This is the trapped air form. You know, I'm going to close this off too. I'm going to go ahead and pinch this over. And this is going to be a trapped air form. So as soon as I attach this right away, the air pressure is going to, as long as I have this, I'm going to go ahead and smooth it too a little bit. I'm holding it on my finger and twirling it and using my thumb and just smoothing that down. Okay. So that little flare is going to go right on there. I'm going to use that flare and bring it down like a little collar. Pull that extra clay down. It's nice and wet. I'm going to use the serrated side of my knife. It's really great for pulling clay down. I can pull it up from the chest and down from the neck. Okay, it's looking good. Let me set him down. Okay, I have yet another trapped air form. So much trapped air, but we're gonna deal with that a little bit here. Get this a little wetter. I think it'll smooth more easily. There we go. Whoa, I got too aggressive. Got this really wet clay here, and I've got kind of a thin spot here. I'm just going to throw that, just pull the wet clay off of the knife and go in and patch that thin spot. You want to be really careful. Like, you'll see me just dip my knife really quickly into the water just to bring a little water in. You don't want a lot of water because you need this thing right now. I got a lot of clay that's really wet, and I don't want it any wetter. I don't want it collapsing. But what I do want to do is I want to get this thing, the form, the general form, made as quickly as possible. His legs, again, I've got a little too much rump here. I'm going to pull some of this clay onto the legs because we don't have, from the legs it goes straight up to his backside. So I'm going to pull this clay down on here. I'm just smoothing it, working a little bit on that transition. Okay. Haniwa horse. I'm standing up on his own there. Okay, now the head. So that is a pretty big head. I'm going to pull this down even more tapered here. Kind of smooth it as I go. He's got kind of a little flat snout on him, so I'm just tapping that on there to flatten that. And whoa! And then take some of this off. Open him back up. See what I think about that head. Okay, I'm feeling pretty good about that head. So I'm going to flare this out. Oh, poor horsey. I'm not used to, I'm trying to keep in a really tight field here, so I'm always in camera. So I'm kind of on top of myself here. And his head goes down a little bit just like that. And I'll use that flared out to go ahead and pull it down onto my horse's neck. And smooth it. I feel like that head is still a little too big. I could take this off here, or I could take it off here. So I'm going to pull this down, make it thinner as long as I have it here. And I'm going to just pinch some off of the end there. So it's nice to take the water and smooth it. You just want to be super careful that you don't get it too wet. And I'm going to use just a little bit of water and go around, clean this up a little bit. And then I'm going to want to let it sit for a little bit. We did a lot to this horse today. And like I said, he's very wet. There's a lot happened to him. And this wet clay doesn't like what I did. It doesn't like me stacking all these elements all at once. And so I'm going to get this far. And then I'm going to let him sit for a little bit. And I can come back and work on him some more later. So I'm going to prop up the head. Prop up the head. I'm just going to take a little thing of clay like this. And I want to prop the head up with clay because as he dries, he's shrinking. If I propped it up with a piece of wood, he'd be shrinking, but the wood wouldn't. And so he'd crack as he shrank against the wood and the wood didn't move. But if I prop it up with a piece of clay, then he and the clay will both be shrinking at the same time. So what I'm going to do is just let him sit. I think I'm going to let him sit for about an hour. And then, so I want all of you to get to this point. Let your little guy sit out for about an hour. And then after he sat, you're going to take and you're going to put him inside of plastic. And I want you to this is after he sat for an hour. I want you to completely wrap him up in plastic and leave him in plastic until we get together for our next meeting.